Welcome to the Brand Telling Podcast, where we go beyond basic branding with powerful stories as told by brand builders, owners, and founders. Now, here are your hosts, Chief Brand Teller Arthur Germain and the Brand Chef Asaf Bachman.
If you're a business owner or founder of a growing business, you may find yourself hiring a variety of employees into your company. You want people who can help your clients in the same way that you would. There's only one problem.
That I can't clone myself?
Okay, two problems. You can't clone yourself legally yet, and you really don't want another you. You want employees who provide a different set of skills.
Well, all jokes aside, I think most business owners really need employees that challenge them, but often they either let a lack of or an overly complex hiring process ruin the chance of finding a good fit just because their resume didn't make it through the cut.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Asaf, you want to hire for a good fit. Someone who plays well with others, someone who brings something different to the table.
Yes, but not a yes bot. You know the type. They often complain about neck pain from nodding yes so often. And sometimes instead of hiring, now you're involved in firing. What does that do to your brand?
For most business owners, this isn't what they imagined running a business would be. And that's what we're going to discuss on today's podcast. Welcome back to the Brand Telling Podcast. I'm Arthur Germain, and with me is my co-host, Asaf, the Brand Chef Bachman.
Thank you, Arthur. Today's guest is Nicole Craviero, founder of Craviero, a boutique HR firm dedicated to providing solutions to small business employers. Most importantly, Nicole draws the line at working with jerks, which Arthur and I can wholeheartedly hop on with.
And Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
So, Nicole, could you kind of briefly describe who you work with at Craviero and what is Craviero?
Sure. I work with small employers, typically under 50 employees. They don't necessarily have an HR resource currently, or they have the wrong person in the HR seat. So someone like an office manager or a bookkeeper, but not really someone who's trained to handle the sensitive situations that often come up in our field. And the way I work with them is on a subscription basis. So I'm always keeping tabs on what's going on. I'm keeping them baseline compliant. So what that means is their policies and procedures are up to date. They have all of their labor law posters in place, and they have someone that they know and trust that they can call when it hits the fan.
Yeah.
And what would you say are some of the things that your company does that business owners just aren't even thinking about that could really impact their brand?
Well, there are some silly rules that the government likes to put in place and then not tell anybody about. So if these rules that you don't know exist, if you're breaking them, there are pretty hefty fines involved. So one example I always use is in New York State, there is a form that you have to give an employee on their very first day. And if you don't, the penalty for that is $250 per worker per day that form is missing. So that could just sink an entire business.
Right. And absolutely. So when you think about, those things, what I would like to call the things you don't know that you don't know, how do you express that to a business owner who really isn't thinking about that? They might be thinking, I'm going to grow my business. I need more employees. They're thinking about growth. And you're saying, okay, but let's do growth with compliance. How do you talk to them about that?
So typically I ask a ton of questions, trying to figure out where they're currently at, what needs to be adjusted to be brought into compliance. I always tell my clients that I'm like a fire extinguisher. Like, you want that before the fire, right? It's not going to help you when your furniture's already crispy. Right. So sometimes, unfortunately, when they reach out to me and it's already too late, they're already in some hot water, and I'll have to bring in like a legal partner. But my goal is to prevent that from ever happening.
Yeah.
So I want to meet with them, find any glaring gaps in compliance. I have a HR audit that I'll conduct with all of my new clients. So I have a good idea of what
Do you
they're
work
doing.
with them throughout the process? Do you work with them on the hiring on the front end as well as as, kind of ongoing, or do you usually come in, when they've got people in place?
So I don't recruit anymore.
Okay.
I have a lot of respect for recruiters, but it is a nonstop process that is very time consuming, and it's just not my area where I specialize in.
Okay.
However, I come in to play during the onboarding process. So I'm going to make sure that they have everything that they need to, one, be compliant, so they're not missing that form and they don't get hit with surprise fines if the DOL comes knocking. And then two, making sure that their employees having a good experience, because it's 2025. I'm going into these companies and they're still using paper.
Right.
We want to make sure that we're utilizing certain tools that will prevent any of these things from slipping through the cracks.
Are there particular industries that you work with, or are you across a variety of industries?
I am industry agnostic. I mean, there are small differences from industry to industry, but at the end of the day, HR is foundational, and all companies need certain things. So.
Yeah.
Right. When you're greeting potential clients or meeting new, people who, might be clients in the future, how do you get across your personality in terms of the brand? I know that you had told us you have a personal brand, plus you have a corporate brand, and you understand the differences between the two. So what are some of the signs to you of when to start introducing the corporate brand when you're talking to somebody?
And let me just interrupt before you start to say, because we're doing this on audio and so people don't get to see this, but Nicole has one of the most put together and clean visual brands that I've ever seen.
Without a doubt.
The color scheme, the typefaces, the photos that you have on there, it's very clear that you've done it with purpose and intent.
And consistent.
And that you're consistent. Asaf laughs, we talk all the time about the idea of brand consistency, and people misunderstand that to be, oh, you guys are just being picky. And I'm like, no, if you're inconsistent in the brand, especially if it's a small brand, it can really fall apart the messages that you're sending. It can really fall apart that connection. So to go back to Asaf's question, how did you kind of decide what you wanted to do and how you wanted to portray yourself as you were putting together Crave HRO?
Oh, this is a loaded question because there's multiple answers to that.
Sure.
So as you're talking, I'm thinking about this story. 2 years ago, I went to the SHRM conference on Long Island, and we're talking hundreds, maybe even thousands of HR professionals.
Right. That's a society of HR managers, right?
So I had walked up to a table of other HR professionals that I knew one person at, and one of the other women that were sitting there was like, "Oh, Nicole," and I'm like thinking in my head like, "Oh crap! Like, have I met her? Do I not remember her? Like, What's going on?" But I had never met her in person before. She goes, "Oh, I saw your logo on the back of your truck in the parking lot."
Right.
So she had just known me from like my online presence, I guess. But I was like, that's pretty cool that my logo now is more recognizable than me as a person.
And especially in what can be a crowded field, not just the ability to be an HR manager, but there's PEOs.
Oh, yeah.
There are individual, payroll companies that kind of think they're PEOs, that think they're HR. There's a lot of these out there, and standing out in that field, that's a great testament to what you've done in the brand. So, kudos to you. I think we'll send everybody at the end of the podcast. We'll get all your links, and we'll send everybody out there to take a look at it.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, so we're going to come back in just a moment. We'll take a quick break here, and we'll come back and talk to you a little bit more. Hey, if you're enjoying the Brand Telling Podcast, there are 3 ways that you can work with us. First, become a guest on the podcast. Asaf and I are always looking for spicy guests. That's business owners and founders who have something to share with our audience. If this sounds like you or someone you know, please email us at podcast@brandtelling.com. Second,
Stay in the loop on everything going on at the Brand Telling Podcast and get yourself a copy of everyone's favorite chapter from my book, The Art of Brand Telling. The chapter is called 5 Steps for Telling Your Own Powerful and Differentiated Story, and it's yours to download for free at subscriber.brandtelling.com. And finally, schedule an introductory call with us and see if we're a fit for your branding challenges. It's a half-hour call to get to know one another and for you to see whether Asaf or I, or both of us, can guide you toward building your perfect brand. Schedule now at letsmeet.brandtelling.com. And now, let's get back to the episode.
And we're back with Nicole Craviero, founder of Craviero. And before the break, we were talking about how Nicole has built up a brand and how her work on her brand has helped her really understand her clients more. So, Nicole, would you be able to talk a little bit about your decisions in creating your brand? What it is that led you to make the choices you made, and how does consistency play a role in that?
So I got lucky in that I started my business after leaving a corporate HR management job in the middle of the day because they could care less about compliance. And I had just started there a month before, and I was not willing to put my professional reputation and the values that I stand by on the line. When I left there, I created Craviero, and I kind of had like this spark of an idea a couple of years leading up to it. And my husband would always say things like, well, you can't do that now. Like, you gotta have a job. And since I walked out in the middle of the day, I had really no other choice. Right. So I started my brands, and actually based on my sorority colors from college. It was pink, teal, and silver. I'm not really a pink kind of girl.
We've had that here. We've had the pink girl
had
here.
Shaughnessy. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that works. But I had just decided, I never changed my logo. I've never changed my name. My name was a play on my last name, which is Craviero. And I just turned the I on the side. So from there, I got lucky because I had the base brand in the first month, and I knew kind of where I wanted to go with that. But at the same time, I got an offer for another position, over 6 figures, right around the block from my house. I'd get to travel.
Right.
And I'm like,
Temptation.
yeah, I was like, when you have 3 tiny clients and at that point you're taking whatever anybody's going to offer you because you want the business.
That's right.
I was like, I can, and get this, I was targeting clients in different time zones so I can come home from my day job and work with them.
Right. I did the same thing.
Yeah. So I got lucky that I was able to build that business for that first year and still have financial stability. But then I got thrown off a cliff.
But it makes you jump in. It really makes you, just say to yourself, is this it or is this not it?
Right.
And it forces you to make that decision.
Right, exactly. And how I ended up transitioning from, a hybrid of corporate and consultant, I would say. My mom, unfortunately, was hospitalized. So I really didn't have the time or the desire to go looking for another full-time 9-to-5 when I knew that if I put my effort into Craviero, I would have the flexibility that I needed to take care of her, and I'd be able to build my business. And through Huga, that was one of the first things I did when I incorporated. But through Huga, I was able to triple my business in the first 3 months and surpass my corporate salary within the year.
Yeah, that's great.
Shout out to Huga.
Yeah, for folks listening, Huga is a Long Island-based networking organization. It's really more of a lifestyle networking organization. It's a different way of networking.
It's when your networking is not working.
Exactly. And, what I like about what you said, just purely from an HR standpoint is you just ran through some of the kind of nightmare scenarios for people for employees in HR. The I've been fired and what do I do? Or the I've walked out and what do I do? Or there's a family member who needs help and needs something and what do I do? And so these are really great, not great, but really good experiences to learn from and be able to provide for, and have that in somebody who's going to provide that to an organization. I assume you build employee handbooks and all those kinds of onboarding things, all the wonderful government forms that we need. So when we think about your clients, these employers who have 50 or fewer employees, Asaf and I call those employees, we call them the brand ambassadors. They're the people who know the brand best, who are out there and talking about the brand, often wearing the brand, like Asaf's got his hat, wearing the brand on their jackets or sleeves. How do you work with these employers to help them understand the impact of their HR choices on their brand?
So I have never been one to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to tell them what I think. And when I'm approaching employers, I have, two lanes. There is the HR side of things where, I'm going to give them knowledgeable, informed advice on how to best approach situations. And then there's the side that, hey, I was once an employee and I'm a human and I'm going to put myself in those shoes.
Yeah.
And I think employers need to understand that they're only an employer because they have employees. So it's important to keep them, especially because the cost of turnover is so high, and these are the people that are helping you succeed.
How would a business owner know that they're ready for an HR company?
So I have clients that will come to me before they hire their first employee. They want to make sure that they are set up correctly and that they have everything they need to start off on the right foot. I have clients that don't come to me until, they've filled a building. With that one, there's more cleanup work generally, but it's kind of like a proactive versus reactive thing. When they get to that size and they're like, maybe I don't want to be doing all this by myself, or maybe I should bring in an outside neutral third party to handle the whatever situation I'm dealing with right now. And that's kind of where I come in.
What's the kind of experience that you want your clients to have with you, to understand both the impact that you provide them, but also, to understand more about you and your brand?
So when I'm working with clients, I am very direct. I'm not soft HR. I'm going to give it to them how it is. They will either respect that or they'll hate it.
Right.
But either way, I'm looking out for them and their people and their company. And also, like I said, I'm a human too. I'm also a business owner.
Right.
So when I want to work with someone, we've got to have at least our values to be aligned.
Yeah. And I think that's important. I think, earlier on, Asaf mentioned, you don't want to work with a jerk. This is at least the second or third time we've heard that with guests here. They let that they don't want to work with the jerk, because I think we've all had that experience. And there's no reason. Yeah. I'm sorry about that, Asaf.
Yeah.
And, so we've all had that kind of experience. And the idea that you are in a position really to help them not be that.
Yeah. And, nobody's perfect. But if you're willing to be open-minded and you're open to change, then that's someone I can work with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
So what are some, red flags? What are some red flags to you of customers or clients where you would say, like, this isn't working out, or I have a company that might work better for you?
So there's a couple of situations that are coming to mind here where it didn't necessarily work out with a client, or I actually turned down the business because I had seen the red flags before we even met. So it's important for me that there's some flexibility. I'm not an employee, and I think that a lot of people have a hard time separating that out. So it's got to be a mutual respect kind of thing. And then also the other one would be if they are painting their employees in a corner, so to speak. If they are doing things purposely as like a power play or something like that, where they're essentially
forcing them to make choices.
Yeah. So like, for example, I had this one employer I was working with he was giving his new hires employment contracts 3 months after they started. And I'm like, hey, what's up with that? Like, because I'm looking at their onboarding process and seeing how I can make it better. And I was expecting that it was like an oversight or something, but it was not. It was done purposely to back them into a corner. So 3 months into it, after they've already put in their notice with their old employer, after they've already settled into the job, that, if there was something in this contract they didn't agree with,
they had no ability to go back out of it.
Yeah, and I think that I believe in transparency. So that's like one of the ways I operate. And I think that was like something that was really sneaky. They didn't agree. So we, parted ways.
Yeah. And I think that's important in the kind of person you want to work with. But even with a company that you do want to work with, are there things that they don't know? You mentioned the New York State law. Are there things that companies want to work with you that they should know that they just they're not aware of, and that you really help them to kind of overcome?
You don't know what you don't know, right? Everybody who starts a business starts it because they're good at what they do. And then when the business grows, that's when they have to hire people.
Right.
They aren't trained to manage people necessarily. They're not trained in HR compliance. They don't know the millions of obscure rules out there, especially if you're in a remote workforce. That gets even crazier because now you're not only subject to the state that you're in and your business is in, you're subject to the rules where the employee sits as well.
I think I need to have a conversation with Nicole.
Yeah, that's a really important thing to understand is, different states have different rules, and, your place of employee, and your place of work, may differ, may vary, and the coverage may vary.
Yeah, imagine trying to keep up with that. I mean, there's how many states?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we don't know. That may change soon, so we're not sure.
We don't know, right? So, Nicole, I would love to know, what's the spiciest client story you have? I'm sure you've worked with lots of different businesses and have a lot of fun stories, but we can only take one, and we can definitely protect people's anonymity.
So this one, I was prepared for you to ask me this question, by the way, but I have permission to share this story. There was this one employee. They had just started working for one of my clients. They had been with them, I don't know, maybe a month or so. And there were red flags, a ton of performance issues. And they were all well documented. But there was one glaring problem that just could not be improved. And that was that this employee was having phone sex in the bullpen.
Whoa.
Yes. And they were well aware that their phone calls were being recorded, because that's another rule. If you didn't know, in New York State, you have to make your employees aware that you're recording them. So she was well aware of that. And when, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how am I going to have this conversation during the termination meeting? Like, my termination meetings are pretty quick.
Yikes.
But it's like, I'm like, let's focus on the performance angle, because I'll give her dignity and she could leave. So we did that. And I had a laundry list of problems that I recited word for word for why we were terminating her. So I thought that was like, we were done. We were not done. A couple of days later, after I sent her the termination letter and her, right to apply for unemployment, which is another rule. Check. But I get an email, and it's accusing the employer of every type of discrimination you could possibly think of, saying that, she wasn't properly trained, whole 9 yards. So I had to craft then an email in response and being like, listen, if you'd like to have your attorney contact us, please do. But we have these recordings. And at the end of the day, that was gross misconduct.
Yeah.
And never heard from her again.
Yeah. That's not so surprising. But wow, that was quite spicy.
So, Nicole, for our audience, for folks who want to avoid, having problems with their employees having phone sex in their office and not covering
that was
for
extreme.
It. Yeah, that's on the extreme side. Tell everybody how they can get in contact with you.
You can go visit my website at www.cravehro.com, and also feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. I love making new connections.
And we'll have your LinkedIn connections in the liner notes where people can find you. Nicole, I really appreciate you being on the podcast with us today. Thank you very much.
Same here. This is fun.
Thank you so much.
For the Brand Telling Podcast, I'm Arthur Germain.
And I'm the brand chef of South Hoffman, signing off. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for the Brand Telling Podcast. If you have a story idea or would like to be a guest on the podcast, please send us an email at podcast@brandtelling.com.
If I have like a brain fart, can we edit it out?
He cuts all that out.
Yeah,
and then if you do, just restart your thought. He will cut everything out.
Okay.
It's like magic.